What if I told you there's a piece of plastic in your hand right now that's engineered down to the millimeter, just so a ball of chewy tapioca can survive the trip from cup to mouth? 10 to 13 millimeters wide, to be exact. That's almost double the size of a regular straw. And it's not an accident. It's physics, food science, and a little bit of 1980s Taiwanese genius, all rolled into one weirdly satisfying sip. Today, we're breaking down exactly how bubble tea gets made, from the tea base to those glossy black pearls, and why that oversized straw is doing way more work than you think. Curious to find out? Stick around. Where this whole thing started. Bubble tea isn't some TikTok invention. It came out of Taiwan in the 1980s when tea shop owners started experimenting with shaking cold tea with milk and sugar to give it that frothy, bubbly top, which is actually where a lot of people think the name comes from. Somewhere along the way, someone dropped tapioca pearls into the mix, and the drink as we know it was born. Fast forward to now, and this isn't a niche drink anymore. The U.S. bubble tea market has been growing at a steady clip, pulled forward by Gen Z and millennial demand for customizable, Instagrammable drinks. And dedicated boba shops now make up nearly half of all bubble tea sales revenue in the country. This is a full-blown category, not a fad. Step 1. The tea base. Every bubble tea starts with, well, tea. Black, green, oolong. Shops brew it strong because it's about to get diluted with milk, sugar, and ice, and a weak base just disappears. Most shops brew large batches ahead of time, then chill it fast to stop the tea from turning bitter or oxidizing further. From there, it's mixed with a sweetener. Classic sugar syrup, honey, or brown sugar syrup if you're going for that trendy caramelized flavor. And either dairy or a non-dairy creamer, depending on the shop and your order. Step 2. The tapioca pearls, aka the boba. This is the part everyone actually shows up for. Tapioca pearls start as tapioca starch, pulled from the cassava root. That starch gets mixed with hot water until it forms a dough. Then it's rolled into small balls, traditionally by hand, though most commercial operations now use machines for consistency. Raw pearls are pale and hard, almost like little pebbles. They only turn into that glossy, chewy, dark boba after a specific cooking process, boiled for a stretch, then left to steep off the heat so the inside cooks through without turning mushy on the outside. After that, they get soaked in a sugar syrup, usually brown sugar or honey, so they don't just taste like starch, and so they don't stick together like cement. Here's the catch. Cooked tapioca pearls have a shelf life measured in hours, not days. Once they're cooked, they start drying out and hardening, which is why good boba shops are constantly cooking small batches throughout the day instead of prepping one giant batch each morning. Step 3. Shaking it all together. Once the tea, sweetener, and milk are mixed, a lot of shops shake the drink, literally in a cocktail shaker, over ice. This does two things. It chills the drink fast without watering it down too much, and it creates that light, frothy layer on top that's part of the drink's whole appeal. The pearls go in the cup, either first or last, depending on the shop. Then it's sealed with that plastic film lid you have to stab through with your straw. Now, let's talk about that straw. Here's where the actual engineering comes in. A standard drinking straw, the kind that comes with your soda, is usually around 6 to 8 millimeters wide. Tapioca pearls, on the other hand, run about 8 to 10 millimeters in diameter once they're cooked and plumped up. Do the math, and a regular straw is basically a dead end. The pearls would jam up instantly. That's why boba straws are built wider. typically somewhere between 10 and 13 millimeters, with the sweet spot around 12 millimeters for standard pearls. It's not just make it bigger and hope for the best. The diameter has to be wide enough that a pearl can slide through cleanly, but not so wide that you're getting a mouthful of pearls with barely any tea in each sip. Go too narrow and you get clogging. Go too wide and you lose the balance between liquid and topping. Plus, it just feels awkward to drink from. There's a second reason for the size, too. Boba straws are usually cut with a pointed or angled tip. That's not for the pearls. That's so you can actually stab through the sealed plastic film on top of your cup without it turning into a wrestling match. A standard straw's flat tip just can't do that. And it's not only diameter. These straws also tend to be sturdier and more rigid than regular ones, because a thin, floppy straw would buckle the second you tried to pierce that lid, or collapse under the weight of a thick, pearl-loaded sip. So really, that oversized straw is solving three problems at once: letting pearls pass, piercing the lid, and holding its shape under a thicker drink. All from one little tube of plastic. A few things worth knowing before you order. The sugar math is no joke. A lot of people don't realize how much sugar is packed into a normal bubble tea order. A standard 16-ounce milk tea with tapioca pearls typically runs 250 to 450 calories, and a big chunk of that comes from two sources: the sugar syrup and the tapioca pearls themselves, since they're soaked in syrup after cooking. Order full sweetness on a large drink, and you can be looking at 8 to 10 teaspoons of added sugar in a single cup, more than the daily added sugar limit some health guidelines recommend, in one sitting. That's actually why almost every boba shop lets you dial sweetness up or down, usually in 25% increments. It's not just a gimmick. Ordering 50% sugar or 30% sugar can meaningfully cut the calorie and sugar load without changing much about the actual flavor experience. Tapioca isn't the only topping game in town. Classic tapioca pearls are cassava starch-based, chewy, and usually black or brown from brown sugar or caramel coloring. But if you've seen little juice-filled bubbles that pop in your mouth, those are popping boba, a completely different product made using a spherification process where fruit juice gets a thin gel membrane. They're lower in calories than tapioca pearls and don't require the same hot cook and soak process, which is part of why they've become popular for fruit teas. Straws are going through their own shift. Plastic straw bans and restrictions have hit a lot of U.S. cities and states over the past few years, and that's put boba shops in a tricky spot. Paper and PLA, plant-based plastic straws, have to be wide enough for pearls, but sturdy enough not to go soft in a cold, wet drink for 20-plus minutes. It's an ongoing engineering problem in the industry, not a solved one. And it's part of why you'll see so much variation in straw quality from shop to shop. Freshness is a bigger deal than people think. Since cooked tapioca pearls harden within hours, a shop that's constantly cooking small batches throughout the day is doing it right. One that's serving pearls from a single morning batch at 8 p.m. is very likely serving you something stiff and gummy instead of that signature chewy texture. Why this actually matters. It's easy to overlook, but the straw is the interface between you and the drink. Get it wrong, and even a perfectly made bubble tea turns into a frustrating experience. Clogged sips, spilled pearls, a lid you can't stab through. Boba shops that skimp on straw quality get complaints for a reason that has nothing to do with the actual tea. It's a small, unglamorous detail, but it's also a pretty perfect example of how much invisible design goes into something you'd never think twice about. So next time you're stabbing through that lid and pulling up a mouthful of pearls, you'll know exactly why that straw is built the way it is. If you liked geeking out over the small stuff that makes food and drinks actually work, hit subscribe. I break down the hidden design behind everyday things like this every week. And drop a comment. What should I break down next?